In the year 2267, Earth's first contact with an extraterrestrial force came not in the form of a peaceful visitor, but as an unstoppable empire bent on conquest. The Galactic Empire, a powerful alliance of advanced alien species, had long stretched its influence across the stars, leaving behind countless worlds in ruins. Now they had set their sights on Earth. The Empire had no interest in diplomacy. Their scouts, who had traveled across vast distances of space, reported that Earth was a primitive world. The humans had only just begun to explore their own solar system, and their technology was far behind that of the Empire. Their population was divided, constantly at war with itself, and thus an easy target. The Emperor, seated on his massive throne in a ship that could easily swallow an entire city, dismissed Earth as nothing more than a nuisance. His advisors urged caution, but he laughed off their warnings. Confident in the overwhelming power of his fleet, he decided to make an example of Earth, to send a message to any other species that might consider defying his empire. As the Emperor's fleet entered the outer edges of the solar system, a strange transmission was received. At first, it was dismissed as a glitch, but it persisted, growing clearer by the hour. It was a message from Earth. The transmission came from the planet's surface, encrypted with an unfamiliar code. It was short, but it echoed in the minds of those who listened. It was a warning. The message read simply, "Do not approach. This is your only warning." The Galactic Fleet's commanders shared a brief, uncomfortable silence as they listened to the message. It was audacious. How could such a weak species make such a demand? The Emperor chuckled. This is their last chance to turn back. Destroy any ships that try to leave the planet, he ordered with a wave of his hand. In the Empire's grand war room, the officers exchanged uneasy glances. Some had heard of humans before, stories of their resilience, their ability to fight back against overwhelming odds. But those were only stories. The Empire's power was beyond anything Earth could comprehend. At the moment on Earth, leaders from around the world were scrambling. They had watched the sky as the alien ships approached, their massive forms visible even to the naked eye. Governments debated, military forces mobilized, and scientists worked feverishly to understand how to defend their planet. But there was no panic. Earth was not a peaceful world. It had known conflict, and its people had learned to adapt, to survive. A secret group of military and civilian experts had been preparing for an event like this for decades. They were the United Defense Network, UDN, a global coalition formed not by political borders, but by the realization that Earth's survival might one day depend on the ability to respond to extraterrestrial threats. The UDN had kept its existence a secret, and its members were the best and brightest from every corner of the globe. From their underground command centers, the UDN watched as the Empire's ships drew closer. The message Earth had sent had not been a bluff. It had been a warning, a challenge. Earth had nothing left to lose. The UDN was ready, and they would not allow their world to fall without a fight. The President of the United States, the Prime Minister of Britain, and leaders from all nations met in a top-secret underground facility. They were surrounded by the best military minds, top scientists, and even a few eccentric geniuses who had built strange new weapons for such an event. The leaders, though frightened, knew they had no choice but to stand their ground. "We've prepared for this," the President said, his voice steady, though his hands trembled. "Earth is not going to fall. Not today. Not to these invaders." In response to the Empire's approach, the UDN activated a series of hidden satellites positioned high above Earth's atmosphere. These were not ordinary satellites. They were weapons far beyond anything the Empire had expected. Using advanced technology, Earth's defense systems activated, cloaked by the vast expanse of space, ready to strike at a moment's notice. But the Empire was still too confident. The Emperor's fleet was already within striking distance of Earth. The warning was clear, but it had been ignored. As the massive fleet of the Galactic Empire moved closer to Earth, the planet's leaders had one goal: survival. The Empire might have believed that Earth was an easy target, but they were about to discover just how wrong they were. On the surface, Earth was a planet torn by war, poverty, and division. Nations struggled with their own problems, and conflicts erupted regularly. The Empire believed this weakness made Earth ripe for conquest. But beneath this chaotic surface, a powerful and secret network of Earth's brightest minds and bravest leaders had been preparing for a day like this. The United Defense Network, UDN, was formed in secret many years ago. It was a group that included military leaders, scientists, engineers, and even ordinary civilians who had realized that Earth's survival might one day depend on something more than just politics and diplomacy. They knew that the galaxy was vast, and that one day, Earth would not be alone in the universe. The UDN made it their mission to prepare for any kind of threat, especially extraterrestrial ones. They believed that Earth was more resilient than the Empire could ever imagine. The UDN's headquarters were buried deep underground, hidden from view, and protected by layers of security and advanced technology. Here, the most brilliant minds of Earth gathered, working day and night on plans to defend the planet. Most of the world's governments had no idea of the UDN's existence, and the few who did considered it a shadow operation, something that might one day become necessary, but something that was not important in their day-to-day lives. When the Empire's fleet entered the solar system, the UDN immediately went into action. They had been expecting this day for decades. Their plan was simple but incredibly risky. Earth would fight back, no matter the odds. At the heart of the UDN was Dr. Elena Pierce, a brilliant scientist and military strategist who had helped develop many of Earth's most powerful weapons. She was the first to notice the incoming fleet as it crossed the boundary of the asteroid belt, heading straight for Earth. The massive ships loomed in space like dark shadows, dwarfing everything around them. "This is it," Elena said, her voice steady as she watched the data streaming across the monitors. "Prepare the defenses. Activate the cloaked satellites. It's time to show them what humanity is capable of." As the UDN activated its systems, Earth's first line of defense began to come alive. Thousands of satellites hidden in the vastness of space, disguised as ordinary asteroids, powered up. These satellites were equipped with powerful railguns capable of firing projectiles at incredible speeds, each one designed to pierce the armor of the Empire's ships. They also carried advanced energy shields, capable of absorbing massive amounts of enemy fire. But the UDN's secret weapon was something even more extraordinary: a network of deep space drones that could move faster than anything the Empire had seen before. These drones were armed with devastating EMP, electromagnetic pulse, devices capable of disabling the Empire's advanced systems. They were small, agile, and nearly invisible in the vastness of space. The Empire's fleet continued its approach, unaware that Earth was preparing for battle. As they entered Earth's orbit, they sent out a message: "Earth, your time has come. Surrender now or face total destruction." But Earth did not surrender. The UDN had one response: "We will fight." As the first waves of the Empire's ships began to open fire on Earth's defenses, the UDN launched its counterattack. The satellites fired in unison, sending powerful railgun projectiles streaking toward the invading fleet. The enemy ships were caught off guard, their shields barely able to withstand the onslaught. The Empire had underestimated Earth's ability to fight back. From the ground, the situation was no less intense. Humanity's military forces, spread across the planet, were mobilized. Soldiers took their positions in hidden bunkers, ready to deploy advanced weapons that had been kept secret for years. The Empire's forces had no idea that humanity had developed cloaking technology, which allowed Earth's military units to move undetected. Elena Pierce and the UDN's command center watched as the battle unfolded. "They're tougher than we thought," Elena muttered, her eyes scanning the reports. "But we have the advantage. They don't know what they're up against. Across the globe, people began to hear the news. What had seemed like an impossible fight was now a full-scale battle. In cities, small groups of resistance fighters sprang into action, rallying civilians and soldiers alike. The Empire's superior numbers did not matter now. Earth had proven one thing: humanity could unite when necessary, and they were not going to fall easily. Meanwhile, deep in the Empire's command ship, the Emperor's advisors began to feel a growing sense of unease. "They're fighting back with unexpected force," one officer said nervously. "This is not what we expected." The Emperor waved him off, confident that the sheer size of the fleet would crush Earth's defenses. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that this fight was not going to be as easy as he had hoped. The battle in space raged on, and Earth's hidden defenses had already caught the Galactic Empire off guard. The Empire's fleet, expecting to crush the planet with ease, found itself taking heavy fire from Earth's cloaked satellites and advanced weapons. But the fight had only just begun. At the forefront of the UDN's counteroffensive was Captain Maya Lawrence, a seasoned military leader chosen to command Earth's most powerful warship, the ISV Aegis. The Aegis was not an ordinary ship. Built in secret over the past decade, it was equipped with Earth's most advanced technology, including stealth capabilities, long-range railguns, and a newly developed antimatter disruptor weapon. It was humanity's first real chance at directly confronting the might of the Empire. Captain Lawrence stood on the bridge, staring at the massive holographic map of the battle unfolding in space. The Empire's fleet was far larger, and their firepower was unmatched. But Earth had something the Empire couldn't predict: ingenuity. Maya knew that Earth's strength wasn't in numbers, but in their ability to adapt, improvise, and fight with everything they had. "Report," she said, her voice steady as she turned to her officers. "Captain, we've successfully activated the cloaking system," Lieutenant Rivera replied. "We're invisible to their sensors. Our first strike will take them by surprise." Maya nodded. She had a plan, and it involved using their surprise advantage to target the Empire's flagship, the Galactic Leviathan. It was a massive ship, at least 3 times the size of the Aegis, with layers of thick armor that made it nearly invulnerable. But even the mightiest ships had their weaknesses, and Maya believed she had discovered the Leviathan's flaw. "Prepare the antimatter disruptor," Maya ordered. "Target the Leviathan's power core." "Understood, Captain," Rivera said, his fingers flying over the control panels. The Aegis moved silently through space, its cloaking system keeping it hidden from the Empire's advanced sensors. Maya's heart raced as the Leviathan came into view, its massive silhouette casting a shadow over the smaller ships around it. It was a beast of war, and it seemed invincible. But Maya knew that sometimes, even the largest of creatures had a soft spot. With a single command, the Aegis decloaked, its weapons charging. The Empire's fleet was momentarily stunned, as their sensors struggled to process the sudden appearance of the human ship. Before they could react, Maya fired the first shot. The antimatter disruptor hit its mark, sending a pulse of pure energy toward the Leviathan. The massive ship shook as its shields failed to hold up against the devastating blast. The explosion was enough to send shockwaves throughout space, and for a brief moment, it seemed like the Empire's flagship might be finished. But the Leviathan wasn't defeated yet. Its massive hull began to repair itself almost instantly, as automated drones worked to restore the ship's power. The Empire's advanced technology had allowed for quick repairs, but it wasn't enough. The damage to the power core was significant, and it would take the Leviathan hours, if not longer, to fully recover. "Direct hit," Lieutenant Rivera shouted. "We've crippled their power core, Captain." Maya smiled, but her victory was short-lived. The Empire's fleet was now fully aware of the human threat, and they were not going to underestimate Earth again. Within seconds, enemy ships surrounded the Aegis, firing their weapons with precision. The Aegis returned fire with everything it had, its railguns sending deadly projectiles toward the attacking ships. Earth's first real warship was holding its own, but Maya knew the fight was far from over. The Empire's fleet was still too large, and their weapons were far superior. "We can't take much more of this," said Commander Zhang, the ship's second-in-command. "We need to retreat or risk being destroyed." Maya hesitated. Retreating would mean abandoning their position and possibly giving up their best chance at winning the battle. But she also knew that Earth had only one shot at making a lasting impact. They couldn't afford to waste it. "Not yet," she said, her voice firm. "We've taken down one of their biggest ships. Now we send them a message. Prepare the ship for evasive maneuvers. We'll keep them occupied long enough for the ground forces to mobilize." With a swift command, Maya ordered the Aegis to launch a series of decoy drones, designed to confuse the enemy and draw their fire. As the drones scattered across space, Maya made her move. The Aegis darted through the battle, firing back at the Empire's ships, buying Earth's forces more time. Meanwhile, on the ground, Earth's forces were already gearing up for their own battle. The United Defense Network had been secretly preparing for this moment, and now, with the fight in space, humanity was ready to defend Earth on every front. The battle in space continued to rage, but humanity's defiance was starting to turn the tide. The Galactic Empire had underestimated Earth. They thought they could overwhelm the planet with sheer force, but instead, they found themselves in a struggle unlike any they had faced before. On Earth, the United Defense Network, UDN, was readying for its own confrontation, while the Empire's attention was focused on the ISV Aegis and the space battle. The UDN had already begun launching their ground-based counterattacks. Earth's military forces, long kept in the shadows and trained for this very moment, now mobilized quickly and efficiently. General Marcus Fields, one of the UDN's top commanders, stood at the heart of the Global Command Center, watching the live feed from the Aegis as it fought against the Empire's fleet. He was not one to wait for orders. He had seen the reports. Earth was outnumbered, but it was not outgunned. "Prepare the orbital defenses," General Fields said, his voice filled with determination. "Activate the ground forces and move out. We're going on the offensive." The UDN's secret weapon, a fleet of unmanned drones and armored vehicles, had been stationed in key locations around the planet. These weapons were not only equipped with state-of-the-art technology, but they were also designed for stealth, capable of moving undetected beneath the Empire's radar systems. The UDN had spent years perfecting these forces, and now they were about to see action. Meanwhile, in space, the Aegis had managed to disable a few of the Empire's smaller ships, but the fight was far from over. The Empire's flagship, the Galactic Leviathan, was still operational, its massive guns now turning toward Earth. The Empire was furious, and their retaliation was swift and powerful. "We've done as much as we can up here," Captain Maya Lawrence said, watching the damage reports roll in. "We've slowed them down, but they're sending reinforcements. We need to finish what we started." "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Earth," Lieutenant Rivera said, his voice urgent. "It's from General Fields." "Put it through," Maya ordered. The screen flickered to life, and General Fields appeared, his face grim but resolute. "Captain, we're launching our ground offensive now. We're hitting their primary landing zones with everything we got. We've activated the EMP satellites across the globe. It's time for Earth to take the fight to them." Maya nodded, her heart pounding. This was the moment they had been preparing for. Earth was no longer just defending itself, it was attacking back. "Understood, General," she said. "We'll hold the line up here. Do what you need to do on the ground." As Maya ended the transmission, the Aegis fired once more, this time sending a devastating blast toward the Leviathan's shield generators. The explosion caused a ripple effect, disabling several of the Empire's ships nearby. On Earth, the ground forces were beginning their assault. The UDN had constructed a series of underground bunkers and hidden bases, which had been stocked with advanced weaponry, armored suits, and supplies. These forces now surged from their hidden locations, surprising the Empire's invasion forces. In major cities across the planet, Resistance fighters, soldiers, and civilians alike began to rise up. They were organized, focused, and ready to defend their home at any cost. The Empire's advanced technology may have given them an edge in space, but on the ground, humanity's resourcefulness and determination were proving to be their greatest weapon. In the dense forests of Africa, hidden EMP bombs were activated, knocking out a portion of the Empire's automated systems. In the mountains of South America, advanced drones, once thought to be mere surveillance tools, now launched coordinated attacks on the Empire's troops. In Europe, thousands of resistance fighters moved into position, preparing to disable key military installations. The Empire's ground forces were caught off guard by the sudden surge of resistance. They had expected Earth to crumble beneath their first strike. Instead, they were facing an enemy that had prepared for years, that was not only fighting for survival, but for its future. Back in space, the Empire's leaders began to feel the pressure. Their fleet was no longer the unstoppable force they had thought it to be. The damage to their ships was mounting, and their supplies were beginning to run low. Every time they tried to regroup, Earth's forces struck again, smart, precise, and relentless. Admiral Corville, one of the Empire's most respected commanders, surveyed the situation from her flagship. Her fingers drummed on the command console. "This cannot continue," she muttered. "We need to crush their resistance, or we will lose." But it was too late. Earth's first wave of counterattacks had already proven that humanity was not the weak, divided species the Empire had believed it to be. As the Empire's fleet struggled to regain control, General Fields and his forces pushed deeper into enemy territory. On Earth, victory was no longer a distant dream. It was within reach, but it would take every last effort, every ounce of strength, and the courage of a united world to finish what had been started. The battle between Earth and the Galactic Empire had reached a crucial turning point. While the Empire's fleet continued to press its attack in space, humanity's forces were making unexpected strides on the ground. Earth's resistance had gone from a small, secretive defense to a worldwide rebellion that the Empire had never anticipated. In space, the ISV Aegis remained on the front lines. Captain Maya Lawrence and her crew fought with all their might, keeping the Empire's fleet at bay. Their weaponry had begun to wear down the invaders, but they knew they had only one chance to turn the tide. The Leviathan, despite the damage it had taken, was still a formidable opponent. It had regenerated its shields and continued to unleash destruction on Earth's defenses. Maya stood on the bridge, her eyes locked on the view of the Leviathan looming in the distance. She could see it clearly now, a massive, dark figure, its hull scared but still bristling with firepower. It was the heart of the Empire's assault, and Maya knew that taking it down would be the key to breaking the invaders' momentum. "We need to focus all fire on that ship," Maya said, her voice sharp. "If we take out the Leviathan, we can stop their reinforcements from arriving." Lieutenant Rivera nodded, quickly relaying the orders to the crew. "All weapons, target the Leviathan's core. We have one shot at this." The Aegis moved into position, its cloaking system deactivating as it moved closer. The ship's weapons powered up, and the crew braced for impact. The first volley of fire struck the Leviathan's shields, causing them to flicker and spark. But the ship's defenses quickly recovered. "We're not getting through," Rivera said, frustration evident in his voice. "Their shields are too strong." Maya's mind raced as she thought of a new plan. They couldn't beat the Leviathan with sheer firepower alone. They had to outsmart it. "EVA teams, get ready," she said. "We're going in close. We're going to disable their engines from the inside." In the vastness of space, the Aegis launched its emergency spacewalk teams, suited up in advanced exosuits designed for zero-gravity environments. The crew members, trained for such high-risk missions, were to board the Leviathan through its damaged ports and disable its power systems from within. Maya was among the first to join the team. She stepped into the airlock, her suit sealing tightly around her, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. She had faced danger before, But this was different. If they failed, Earth's hope would be lost. Outside the Aegis, the crew floated silently toward the Leviathan, carefully avoiding enemy fire as they approached. Once they reached the enemy ship, they quickly used cutting tools to break through a weakened section of the hull. Inside, they found themselves in a dark mechanical maze, their suits' lights flickering as they moved. "We have one shot," Maya said into the comms. "Get to the engine room. Disable their engines before reinforcements arrive." The team moved with precision, working together to avoid detection. The Empire had no idea that humanity had managed to infiltrate their flagship. As they made their way deeper into the ship, they encountered enemy soldiers, but they were no match for the highly trained Earth crew. After what felt like an eternity, Maya and her team reached the heart of the Leviathan, its engine core. The machinery hummed with power, and Maya could feel the vibrations through her suit. "We're in," Maya said, her voice steady despite the pressure. "Set the charges. We're going to disable this ship." The team worked quickly, placing explosives around the core. As they prepared to detonate, the alarms blared, signaling that the Empire had discovered their presence. "We need to move now," one of the crew shouted, panic in his voice. But Maya was calm. "Start the countdown," she ordered. "We're not leaving without completing the mission." With a tense final glance at the massive engine, Maya activated the timer and led the team back toward the breach in the hull. The explosion, when it came, was deafening. The Leviathan shook violently as its power systems went offline, throwing the entire ship into disarray. Back aboard the Aegis, the crew watched as the Leviathan stalled, its massive guns falling silent. The first phase of Earth's victory was complete. On the ground, the UDN's forces had also made their move. General Marcus Fields watched as Earth's military began to secure key locations across the globe. The Empire's landing zones had been compromised, and their troops were now scattered and disorganized. EMP blasts had crippled much of their technology, and Earth's resistance had been swift and decisive. "Keep pushing forward," General Fields commanded. "We have them on the ropes. Let's make sure they don't recover." In the command center, the situation looked grim for the Empire. Admiral Corval could see the damage that had been done. Her fleet was in disarray, and the Empire's reinforcements were far from ready. "They're fighting back harder than we thought," she said, her voice cold. "We need to retreat. Prepare the fleet for a full withdrawal." But even as the Empire began to consider retreat, it was already too late. Earth's first victory had sparked a fire of hope in every corner of the planet. Humanity had proven its resolve, and the Empire's time on Earth was rapidly running out. The Leviathan was crippled. The massive ship, once a symbol of the Empire's power, now drifted aimlessly in space, its weapons silent and its engines dead. Captain Maya Lawrence and her crew watched from the Aegis as the flagship of the Galactic Empire faltered. Earth had struck a decisive blow, and now, the Empire was feeling the consequences. Maya leaned back in her seat on the bridge, her mind racing. They had done it. The Leviathan was out of commission, and the Empire's massive war machine was beginning to crack. But they weren't out of danger yet. The remaining Imperial fleet was still formidable, and they had no idea what the Empire would do next. "Captain, we've detected a retreat signal from the enemy fleet," Lieutenant Rivera said, his voice tense. "They're pulling back." Maya nodded slowly, processing the information. The Empire was retreating, but this wasn't a simple surrender. They were regrouping. The battle wasn't over. "We need to move fast," Maya said. "They'll be trying to regroup, but if we keep the pressure on them, we can prevent them from escaping Earth's orbit. Prepare the ship for pursuit. Full speed ahead." The Aegis shifted into motion, its engines firing as it accelerated toward the remaining enemy ships. Maya knew that the Empire would not let this defeat go unanswered. They would gather their forces and strike back, but she wasn't about to give them the chance. Earth had fought too hard, and now they had an opening to finish what they had started. Meanwhile, on Earth's surface, General Marcus Fields watched as his forces took control of more key locations. The Empire's once dominant presence on the planet had been shattered. What had started as a desperate defense had turned into an all-out offensive, and Earth's resistance was proving stronger than anyone had expected. "We've secured the last of their landing zones," General Fields said, looking at the reports. "Our forces are moving in to clean up the remnants of their ground forces. It's time to bring them down for good." The general's words were echoed by the growing sense of hope around the world. From the heart of Europe to the deserts of Africa, humanity was rising up. The Empire's invasion had failed, and Earth's people were more united than ever. The belief that they could win had spread like wildfire, and every citizen now felt like a soldier in the fight for their future. But even as the Empire's ground forces crumbled, the fight in space was far from over. Back aboard the Aegis, Maya knew that the final battle was coming. If they didn't act quickly, the Empire's remaining ships would manage to escape and regroup. Earth's moment of triumph could slip away in an instant. "Captain, the remaining Imperial ships are trying to break through the atmosphere," Lieutenant Rivera reported. "They're attempting to escape." Maya's heart raced. If the Empire managed to escape Earth's orbit, it would be a major setback. They would regroup, reinforce, and return in greater numbers. This couldn't happen. "Launch the secondary wave," Maya ordered, her voice resolute. "We'll stop them now." Earth's most advanced fighter pilots, who had been waiting for this moment, now took to the skies. The UDN's fleet of fighter ships and support crafts launched from Earth's surface, a fleet of skilled pilots ready to take on the remaining Imperial ships. The Aegis would remain in orbit, but it was up to these fighters to stop the Empire's ships from escaping. The fight in space was fierce. Earth's pilots were determined, fighting with everything they had. The Imperial ships, though technologically superior, were overwhelmed by the sheer willpower and unity of Earth's forces. Each pilot fought with precision and teamwork, knowing that this was the final chance to drive the Empire away. Meanwhile, Maya and her crew on the Aegis continued to press their attack. Their mission was simple: prevent the Empire from escaping Earth's orbit at all costs. They had already taken down the Leviathan, but there were still several heavily armed ships to deal with. The Empire's fleet had regrouped, and their weapons fired with terrifying accuracy. But Earth's forces were not intimidated. "Captain, we've got a clear shot at their command ship," Rivera called out. "This is it. If we disable it, the rest of their fleet will have no choice but to retreat." Maya took a deep breath. This was the moment that would decide it all. She made the call. "Fire everything we've got," she said, her voice unshaken. "This ends now." The Aegis fired its remaining weapons, a concentrated barrage of energy and missiles, all aimed directly at the heart of the Imperial command ship. The massive ship shook as the blasts hit their mark. Its shields failed, and its engines erupted in a brilliant explosion. For a brief moment, the entire fleet seemed to hesitate. The Imperial command ship had been destroyed, and its influence on the rest of the fleet had been broken. In the final moments, Earth's fighters closed in, finishing off the last of the escaping Imperial ships. The remaining forces turned and fled, no longer able to keep up the fight. Captain Maya Lawrence, her hand still steady on the controls, looked out at the empty expanse of space. The battle was won. The Empire had been driven away. On Earth, General Marcus Fields stood proudly in the command center. The invasion was over. The victory belonged to humanity. "We did it," he said softly. "We stopped them." The resistance had succeeded. Earth was safe once again, and the Galactic Empire would never forget the day they learned that humanity would never be conquered. The aftermath of the battle was overwhelming. Earth had stood strong against the Galactic Empire, and now the world was beginning to breathe again. The skies above were clear, with no sign of the Imperial fleet. The ground was slowly returning to normal, with the resistance forces continuing their efforts to restore peace and rebuild. General Marcus Fields stood on the steps of the United Defense Network headquarters, looking out over the horizon. The war was over, but the scars of the conflict would remain for a long time. Yet there was hope in the air, a sense of unity that had never been felt before. Humanity had faced the greatest challenge in its history, and they had emerged victorious. The world had changed in ways that no one could have imagined. The nations that once stood divided were now united in purpose. The UDN, which had been a secret organization before the invasion, had now become the cornerstone of Earth's defense, ready to stand guard against any future threats. Inside the UDN command center, General Fields addressed a group of leaders from every corner of the globe. They gathered to discuss the next steps, to plan for the future. It was no longer a time for fear or uncertainty. It was time for Earth to rebuild and grow stronger than ever. "The fight is over," Fields began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "But our work is just beginning. We've shown that we can stand up to the most powerful force in the galaxy. Now we must ensure that we never face such a threat again. Together, we will protect our world and our future." The leaders nodded in agreement. For the first time, they were all on the same page. The divisions that had existed between nations were fading. There was a shared understanding that only by working together could they ensure humanity's survival in a universe filled with danger. Across the globe, people were celebrating. The victory was not just military, it was symbolic. The Empire had tried to crush humanity's spirit, but instead, they had awakened something powerful. The desire for freedom, unity, and hope had spread like wildfire. In every city, every village, and every town, Earth's citizens celebrated their triumph, knowing that their unity had brought them victory. Captain Maya Lawrence stood on the deck of the Aegis, her eyes scanning the stars. The mission had been long, exhausting, and dangerous, but it was worth it. Earth was safe. The Aegis had been a symbol of that victory, but now it was time for the crew to return home and reunite with their families. Maya felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. The Empire was gone, but humanity was still here, stronger than ever. And there was much more work to be done. The UDN was now tasked with protecting Earth, but there were other galaxies, other worlds, and new challenges to face. The victory over the Galactic Empire was only the beginning of a new chapter for humanity. Back on Earth, the world began to rebuild, not just physically, but emotionally. The scars of war ran deep, but the strength of the human spirit was evident everywhere. The people had come together, their differences set aside for the greater good. In the face of unimaginable odds, humanity had proven its strength. But even as Earth celebrated, a quiet message was sent from the far reaches of the galaxy. The Empire had not forgotten their defeat, and they were already plotting their return. The leaders of the Empire were angry and humiliated, and they would not rest until they had regained their lost honor. As General Fields looked out over the planet, he knew that this peace would not last forever. The universe was vast, and threats could come from anywhere, but humanity had proven that it would never give up. They had stood together against an enemy more powerful than they could have imagined, and they had won. And now, as they looked to the stars, they knew that the next challenge might come at any moment. But one thing was certain: Earth was ready. In the days that followed, humanity began to strengthen its position, both on Earth and in space. The UDN worked to establish new alliances with other species, making sure Earth was no longer a vulnerable planet. The people of Earth knew that they were no longer alone in the universe. They had proven their strength, and they would continue to grow, adapting to whatever challenges lay ahead. Captain Maya Lawrence and General Marcus Fields were honored for their leadership and courage, but neither of them was content to rest on their laurels. They knew that, though Earth had won, the future was uncertain. They would need to continue fighting, not just for survival, but for the prosperity of the next generation. Earth had proven its worth in the eyes of the galaxy. Now, humanity would ensure that its story was one of peace, progress, and strength. And so the people of Earth looked forward to the future with hope, knowing that no matter what came next, they would face it together. Their victory had shown them one simple truth: humanity would always fight for its survival and for its future.